Why does everything they say still get under your skin? You pretend it doesn't. You laugh it off, shrug it away, say it doesn't matter, but deep down you feel it. Every insult, every cold shoulder, every time they ignored you, it cuts, quietly but deeply. And maybe no one sees it, but you carry it. In silence, in anger, in overthinking, in self-doubt. You tell yourself it's normal, that being sensitive means being human. But what if I told you the world has lied to you? What if I told you that the way you've been trained to feel is the very thing that's making you weak? You were taught to react, taught to care what they think, to seek their approval, their praise, their validation. But the truth is this: when they can affect how you feel, they control who you are. And that's not just a flaw, it's a threat. Because anyone who can trigger your emotions owns your mind. And you'll never be free as long as your peace belongs to other people. This isn't just about being tough. This is about reclaiming your life, your focus, your power. You don't need to be cold. You need to be untouchable. They want you soft, easy to manipulate, easy to offend. Because soft people don't rise. They sit, they hesitate, they overthink, and they break. The system needs you addicted to attention, ruled by likes, trapped by comments, and destroyed by opinions. But you're here now because something inside you is tired of being affected, tired of being shaken by words, disrespected by silence, and paralyzed by fear. You're done living on emotional autopilot. You're done handing your inner world to people who haven't earned it. Imagine what life feels like when no one can disturb when someone insults you and you feel nothing, when someone doubts you and you don't flinch, when someone leaves and you stay calm. That's not emptiness, that's mastery. That's what Machiavelli understood better than anyone. That power belongs to the one who controls his own state. Not the one who reacts, not the one who pleads, not the one who breaks under pressure, but the one who sees everything and still chooses silence, focus, and action. You've felt it before. That moment when you stayed calm while others lost their heads. That's your true self. That's who you could be all the time, but to become that version, you need to unlearn what the world has drilled into you. You must let go of the idea that emotions rule you. They don't. You do. This video will show you how to get there, step by step, idea by idea, layer by layer, until nothing can touch you. Because the moment you stop being affected is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. Stay until the end, because this isn't about impressing anyone. This is about becoming someone who cannot be broken, not by people, not by failure, not by life. That person already lives in you. It's time to wake him up. They told you to follow your heart. They told you to trust your feelings. But feelings lie. They distort. They cloud your vision. They pull you in 10 directions and leave you paralyzed in all of them. And the world takes full advantage of that. They feed your emotions, trigger your reactions, and manipulate your mind like a puppet on strings. Because as long as you feel too much, you'll never see clearly. And if you can't see clearly, you'll never win. You've been taught to make decisions through the lens of comfort, attachment, and fear. But clarity only comes when emotion dies down. That's why the most dangerous people in the room are not the loud ones. They're the ones who say nothing, who watch, who wait, who calculate, because they've learned the ultimate skill, emotional control. That's what Machiavelli mastered. He didn't need to scream. He didn't need to prove anything. He saw human nature for what it was: self-interested, fragile, and predictable. And when you understand people at that level, you stop being shocked by their behavior and start mastering your response. You will never be able to control the world, but you can control your perception of it. And once you control that, you become untouchable. When you stop assigning meaning to every word, every look, every silence, you become powerful. Because you no longer depend on things going your way to feel stable. You don't beg the world to be kind, to train your mind to be stronger. That's where freedom begins, not in changing others, but in mastering yourself. Most people live in reaction mode. They scroll, compare, judge, explode, collapse. They are slaves to their mood. They believe the lie that being real means being emotionally raw. But being real means being in control. It means owning your mind so fully that nothing outside of you can dictate who you are inside. When people try to trigger you and you don't even blink, that's not emptiness, that's presence, that's strength. That's what you were born for. You see what happens when emotions take over: regret, weakness, desperation, the wrong words, the wrong moves, the wrong path. How many times have you looked back and thought, if only I stayed calm? This is your chance to never say that again. This is your moment to choose the higher path, the path of awareness, precision, discipline. Not because you want to look strong, but because you want to be strong. Strong in silence, endure. Strong in chaos. Strong in identity. The deeper you go into emotional neutrality, the more powerful you become. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer fear, you assess. You no longer chase, you attract. That's not coldness, that's evolution. That's what separates the ordinary from the unshakable. And you're not here to be ordinary, you're here to transform, because the mind that rules itself rules everything. Keep going. The world will keep pushing, but when nothing moves you, you move the world. You've been conditioned to react like a puppet, to flinch at criticism, to get angry when disrespected, to collapse when ignored. But the truth is, none of it is real power. It's programming. Reactions are nothing more than buttons built into your mind by a world that profits from your weakness. Every time you get offended, someone wins. Every time you overthink, someone stays in control. And every time you crave validation, someone else owns your peace. That's not sensitivity. That's slavery. They've made you believe that being affected is normal. That caring too much means you have a good heart, but a heart that breaks over every little thing is a weapon in the hands of the enemy. It's time you understood something they never wanted you to know. Your emotions are tools, not truths. They are meant to be directed by you, not dictated by others. Because the person who controls your state controls your fate, and until you kill your need for approval, you will always live in fear of rejection. Look at your life. How many opportunities have you walked away from just because someone didn't clap for you? How many moments did you shrink in, waiting for permission to be bold? How many nights did you torture yourself because someone didn't respond, didn't agree? That's not life. That's emotional prison. And it ends the moment you decide it's over. Because the truth is, most people don't even know what they're doing to you. They press buttons they don't even understand. But you do. And now that you see the pattern, you have a choice. Stay trapped or rise above it. There is a silent power in not reacting, in not needing to explain yourself, in not being moved by shallow opinions or passive disrespect. That silence is where real strength lives. It's where kings operate. It's where strategy replaces emotion and precision replaces chaos. When you stop giving your energy to everything, you reclaim your focus. And when you reclaim your focus, you become a weapon, calm, clear, and impossible to control. People will test you. They always will. Some intentionally, some blindly, but none of them matter. What matters is your ability to remain unmoved, to hold the line, to stay rooted in who you are, unaffected, unbothered, untouchable. Not because you don't care, but because you've evolved past the point of needing to react. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. And when you embody that energy, the world has no choice but to adjust to you. This is your edge in a world that wants to break you. Your stillness is your weapon, your indifference is your armor, and your detachment is your freedom. Never forget this. The ones who win aren't the loudest, they're the calmest. Because when nothing shakes you, nothing stops you. And when you stop being affected, you start being unstoppable. Keep moving forward. They can't touch what doesn't flinch. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of control. It means your emotions answer to you, not to them. It means you decide what enters your mind, what moves your heart, and what shapes your response. Weakness begins the moment you let someone else define your reality. Strength begins the moment you reclaim that power. You've been too open for too long, too accessible, too easily read, too easily provoked. That ends now. You must learn to observe without absorbing, to see the chaos and not become it, to hear the insults and remain unmoved. Because the ones who throw stones at you are never aiming at your strength. They're aiming at your reaction. They want to see you spiral. They want to see you bleed. But when you no longer give them that reaction, you win without lifting a finger. When you hold your ground in silence, you disarm their entire strategy. Because no one knows what to do with someone they can't shake. There is a shift that happens when you stop chasing emotional comfort and start choosing mental dominance. You stop asking, why did they do that? And start asking, why did I let it matter? You stop playing defense and start playing offense. Not with noise, not with drama, but with stillness. Because the most terrifying force in the world is a person who cannot be triggered. A person who has severed the emotional strings the world uses to control everyone else, that's the person they fear. That's the person they can't predict. And that's the person you're becoming. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them walk away. Your mission is not to be understood. It's to be unshaken. Your mission is not to be liked. It's to be untouchable. Every moment you spend reacting is a moment you lose your power. But every moment you spend detached, focused, and calm, that's when you gain it back. The world is loud on purpose. It wants your attention. It wants your energy. But you're not here to feed it. You're here to rise above it. You will never control how people see you, but you can control how much of yourself they get to access. And the less they affect you, the more they'll respect you. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. By being the calmest presence in the storm, by being the one who didn't flinch, that is how power is felt, through restraint, not reaction. Through direction, not desperation. This is your rebirth. The death of the emotionally reactive self and the birth of the emotionally sovereign self, the version of you that watches instead of panics, that thinks instead of reacts, that moves with intention, not impulse. No more being shaken, no more being owned by circumstances, moods, or people. You are no longer a product of your emotions. You are the master of them. And when you reach that level, nobody and nothing can touch you again. The world only has power over you if you keep handing it pieces of your mind. Every time you justify yourself, explain your silence, or defend your worth, you give them access they never deserved. But silence is not weakness, it's discipline. And control is not coldness, it's clarity. When you detach, you don't lose compassion, you gain precision. You start choosing what truly matters and ignoring what never did, because not everything deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your reaction. Emotional discipline is the highest form of strength. It means you've trained yourself to respond from intention, not from wounds. It means you've learned to pause when others panic, to observe before you speak, to think before you strike. This is the art of war within the self, where chaos no longer rules your actions. Your stability becomes your shield, your focus becomes your sword, and no one sees it coming. Because nothing is more disarming than someone who simply doesn't react. They will try to provoke you, to drag you down, to confuse your calm with indifference. But that is not your burden to correct. Their misunderstanding is not your responsibility. You're not here to prove your value. You're here to embody it. And real value doesn't speak. It moves in silence. It leads with strength. It doesn't chase. It attracts. Because when your presence is powerful, your words become optional. And that's the level you must reach. Most people are controlled by fear. Fear of not being seen. Fear of not being understood. Fear of being left behind. So they act out. They seek attention. They try to force relevance. But fear-driven behavior is always weak. It's loud. It's reactive. It's unstable. But when you strip away that fear, you no longer need to be anything other than focused. You become surgical with your time, lethal with your silence, and unstoppable with your purpose. The less you react, the more they reveal. And the more they reveal, the more you learn. That's how power grows, not through noise, but through knowledge. You've spent too much of your life explaining yourself to people who never had the depth to understand you. That ends now. You don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need approval to be effective. You need one thing, mastery over self. Because once you master yourself, they can't use anything against you. Not shame, not rejection, not failure. You become the weapon they can't decode, the presence they can't shake, the mind they can't manipulate. This is your evolution. Not to become less emotional, but to become more controlled. Not to be heartless, but to be unbreakable. You've felt the pain of being reactive. Now you'll taste the power of being unshakable. Let them do what they do. You will do what they can't. Stay calm, stay focused, and stay in control. That's how you rise, that's how you dominate, that's how you disappear from their grip and appear only where power lives. Detachment is not distance. It is presence without dependence. You do not cut yourself off from the world. You simply stop letting it define you. You begin to see everything and need nothing. This is the highest level of personal power, when you are involved in life but not imprisoned by it. You can engage, connect, lead, but you no longer bend your identity to fit the expectations of people who don't even understand their own. That's when your inner world becomes solid. That's when the outside world loses its grip. Most people give away their energy for free. They overthink insults. They dwell on disrespect. They obsess over silence. They chase closure. And every one of those habits is a crack in their armor. So, the moment you stop reacting to everything around you is the moment you become the one thing this world cannot control. Calmness in the face of chaos is a threat to every weak-minded person who needs drama to feel alive. When your peace can't be stolen, your mind becomes a fortress. And when your mind becomes a fortress, your future belongs to you. Reactions are currency, and you've been overpaying. Every emotional outburst, every unnecessary explanation, every defensive response, each one drains your strength. The people who manipulate others know this. They don't win through truth. They win through reaction. They exploit your desire to be liked, to be heard, to be right. But when you no longer care about being right, when you no longer crave validation, when you no longer need them to see your side, you become impossible to use. Their tricks stop working. Their games lose power, and you rise beyond the noise. Beyond. Silence is misunderstood because it threatens those who need attention to feel secure. But silence is the loudest expression of power. It says, I don't need to respond. I don't need to prove. I don't need to beg. It speaks from a place that words can't reach. It intimidates not through aggression, but through certainty. Because when you are certain of who you are, nothing outside of you has authority. That's what control really is. Not the domination of others, but the mastery of yourself. You don't owe anyone an emotional explanation for your strength. You don't need to soften yourself to make others comfortable. Growth is uncomfortable, and your evolution will disturb those who refuse to rise. Let it. You were not born to be digestible. You were born to be formidable. And that means you will be misunderstood. You will be judged. But none of it matters because their opinions do not affect your purpose. This is what emotional freedom looks like. Clarity without confusion, presence without pressure, dominance without noise. You are no longer living for reaction. You are living for strategy. You are no longer controlled by the mood of the room. You are the one who sets it. This is not ego. This is discipline. And once you reach this level, nobody and nothing will affect you again. Because you don't need to shout to be heard. You've become the silence that commands respect. You don't rise by reacting. You rise by outlasting. Your strength is not proven through confrontation, but through your ability to remain unmoved while everything around you collapses. Emotional endurance is the mark of someone who leads themselves. The world will test you. People will provoke you. Life will throw distractions wrapped in emotion, but you are no longer a slave to the storm. You are the stillness in the middle of it, and when you realize that peace is a decision, not a reward, you stop waiting for the world to calm down and start creating silence within yourself. You must stop feeding what drains you. Not every voice deserves an answer. Not every challenge deserves your energy. Power isn't always in motion. It's often in restraint. It's knowing that your value doesn't increase by being seen more, heard more, or liked more. It increases when you stop negotiating with people who offer confusion in exchange for your clarity. There is nothing more powerful than knowing what you're not available for. You're not available for disrespect. You're not available for manipulation. You're not available for emotional gain. And you no longer seek to explain that. You just move differently. And they feel it. Most will never understand this level of control because they're addicted to emotional survival. They crave attention, approval, and conflict to feel real, but you're done with survival. You're building a mind that leads, not follows, a heart that observes, not pleads, a life that chooses, not chases, and this shift isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in how you don't flinch, how you don't flinch, how you don't chase closure, how you don't argue for your limitations. You're not here to be understood by the weak. You're here to outgrow them. Indifference to chaos is not coldness. It's leadership. When you no longer react to every provocation, you free your time, your energy, and your purpose. You become too focused to be distracted, too centered to be manipulated, too elevated to be touched. That's not a performance. It's discipline. And discipline is freedom. Because when you control your emotions, you control your reality. You're no longer a prisoner to moods, triggers, or people. You don't need to win arguments. You've already won your peace. You don't need to defend your boundaries. They're enforced by your energy. The less you respond, the more powerful you become. Silence is no longer empty, it's strategic. Distance is no longer passive, it's protection. And self-control is no longer optional, it's the foundation. You are not abandoning your heart, you are commanding it. You are no longer at war with what people think of you. You are aligned with who you know you are. And that is a threat to every shallow mind that depended on your old self. You've risen too far to fall back into chaos. You've seen too much to care about noise. You've grown too strong to ever be affected again. Keep building this power. Keep guarding your peace. The world may try to shake you, but the difference now is you don't move. There is a moment when you stop asking for peace and start choosing it. That moment changes everything. Because now, instead of trying to fix the world around you, you fix your posture in it. You stop expecting calm from chaos. You stop begging honesty from liars. You stop chasing connection from the disconnected. You no longer hand over your power to people who cannot even manage their own. You see them clearly now, not as enemies, but as noise. And noise is only loud to the unfocused. Control isn't about dominance. It's about eliminating distractions. It's about narrowing your attention so deeply that nothing useless survives in your space. Not drama, not doubt, not guilt. You train your mind to see through it all. To recognize manipulation not as danger, but as weakness. You begin to understand that when someone tries to provoke you, it's not a sign of their strength, it's a sign of their emptiness. And your refusal to react becomes the mirror they can't escape. That's where your power grows, in your silence, in your discipline, in your ability to stay centered while the world spins off course. It's not that you don't feel things. You just refuse to let feelings lead. Emotions are information, not instruction. You listen, you learn, but you no longer obey every emotional impulse that demands a reaction. This is self-mastery. It's what separates the strong from the scattered. It's why the calmest one in the room always wins, not because they're loudest, but because they're grounded, unshaken, focused. People sense it. They don't know why, but they feel the weight of your presence. It's the weight of someone who no longer needs the world's approval to breathe. You've been through enough. You've seen the damage of being too available to chaos. You've lived the cost of letting people rent space in your mind for free. And now you close those doors, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. If you don't guard your energy, the world will drain it without apology. And they will always ask for more. But now, you know better. Now you say no, not with words, but with distance. Not with arguments, but with absence. You've entered the stage of your life where you no longer react to pressure, you apply it. You are no longer impressed by noise, you look for direction. You are no longer chasing comfort. You are building strength, and the stronger you become, the more invisible your triggers become. What used to break you no longer moves you. What used to confuse you now teaches you. You see through everything and respond to almost nothing. That's not numbness. That's control. And with that control, you no longer fear what's coming. You're too prepared. You no longer fear what people think. You're too focused. You no longer fear being alone. You've built a mind so powerful that solitude is no longer a punishment. It's your power source. When your mind becomes your ally, nothing external can dominate you. The war was never outside. It was always internal. The real battlefield is the space between stimulus and response. And once you control that space, you control everything. You decide what gets your attention, your energy, your emotions. You don't chase peace anymore. You generate it. You don't beg for respect. You embody it. And when the world can't pull you off center, you become unbreakable. That's not arrogance. That's the result of mastering yourself when everything else tried to own you. You no longer fall for pressure dressed as urgency. You don't respond to guilt disguised as care. You've sharpened your perception, and now you see through the games. You don't owe anyone your time, your explanation, your reaction. People will demand it, manipulate for it, guilt you into it. But they only succeed if you allow. And you don't anymore, because now you understand. The most valuable form of discipline is emotional economy, spending your energy only where it builds you, not where it bleeds you. The strongest version of you isn't louder, angrier, or more reactive. It's colder in strategy, warmer in purpose, and sharper in judgment. You're not building walls to hide behind. You're building gates to control what enters. You're not afraid of people. You're just no longer available to those who feed on weakness. And when you stop explaining your evolution to those committed to misunderstanding it, you free yourself from their approval forever. You let them think you've changed, because you have. And that change cost you silence, reflection, and painful decisions they will never understand. The people who once triggered you no longer reach you. Their words bounce off your clarity. Their tactics collapse under your calm. You're not trying to fix them. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just walking forward untouched. That's power, when your presence disturbs what your words never needed to address. When your energy carries a boundary so strong it speaks louder than confrontation ever could. And the higher you rise in this mindset, the more resistance you'll face from those who remain addicted to dysfunction. They'll call you distant, cold, arrogant. Let them. That's their reaction to losing access to your weakness. You didn't become harsh, you became honest. You didn't lose your empathy. You redirect it to yourself. You stop saving everyone else while drowning in the process. And now your power comes from restraint, not reaction. This is the new you, one that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and doesn't chase. You are driven by clarity, not emotion, by values, not noise, by purpose, not pressure. And from this place, nobody and nothing can affect you unless you allow it. You are no longer trying to be unbreakable. You've simply stopped giving others the tools to break you. That is the shift. That is the transformation. And that is what makes you truly untouchable. There comes a time when your silence becomes louder than your defense. When your presence alone commands more respect than your explanations ever did. That time arrives when you've had enough of shrinking yourself to fit the comfort zones of others. When you finally understand that protecting your peace is not a luxury, it's a responsibility. You've walked through too much chaos to open the door to it again. You've survived manipulation, disrespect, and betrayal. But survival is no longer your standard. Now you aim for mastery, and mastery requires you to act like the gatekeeper of your own soul. You no longer need validation from those who never understood your vision. You don't require recognition to know your worth. You're not waiting for applause before you move. You've become internally driven. That shift is permanent. Because when your power comes from within, the outside world loses its grip. No opinion can shake your purpose. No insult can touch your self-respect. No loss can make you question your value. That is what it means to be truly untouchable. Not immune to pain, but unwilling to be defined by it. There is clarity in disconnection. Detaching from the noise doesn't mean you're empty. It means you're finally full of something real, something stable, something that cannot be stolen. You've detached from the addiction to being liked, the need to explain yourself, the habit of seeking closure from people who never gave you peace to begin with. You don't chase closure anymore. You create it within yourself. You no longer fear endings. You welcome them when they protect your growth. That's emotional maturity. That's internal evolution. This new level of discipline feels like solitude to most, but to you, it feels like freedom. You are not running away. You're walking forward. You are not isolating. You're elevating. And from this height, you can see everything more clearly. You recognize patterns. You sense energy shifts. You detect manipulation without needing proof. You no longer need someone to hurt you twice to know they're not for you. You trust your instincts, not just your eyes. That's how you stay ahead. That's how you stay safe. And now you move differently. Not with arrogance, but with intention. You don't waste steps. You don't waste words. You don't waste yourself. Your presence is calculated. Your energy is protected. Your mind is fortified. You've replaced reaction with reflection, noise with awareness, weakness with wisdom. You are no longer a victim of your environment. You've become the architect of it. And every boundary you draw is a declaration. I know who I am, and I decide what enters. This is your power. The kind that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't fold. The kind that observes, decides, and moves with purpose. You are no longer moved by chaos because you've become the calm. You are no longer controlled by pressure because you've become the standard. And you are no longer afraid of who leaves because you trust who you're becoming. Nothing and nobody will affect you again, not because the world changed, because you did.